say a special good morning to those of you listening to Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9. Those of you viewing GBN TV, whether you're viewing Channel 7, Channel 11, Channels 20, good morning. Welcome. It's Monday, the 18th day of November, 2024. It's To The Point. I'm your host, GT. Let me say good morning to Mr. Sylvan McIntyre. Good morning to you, sir. And how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, GT. A very pleasant good morning to you, and I'm great. Happy to be alive. And before you go on, as you mentioned, the 18th of November, that just sprung into my head. Mm-hmm. Today is my last son's birthday.
Okay.
November 18th, and my two grandsons were last week.
All right.
Both of them November, so I have 3 Novembers to celebrate.
Well, that's good.
So yeah, again, a pleasant good morning to everyone, our listeners, our viewers, our followers, and so it's quite a bit we need to talk about this morning. Coming from last week is very eventful, and there's something that we're going to speak about that coming through from the weekend and all of last week. I just want to express my heartfelt, not condolences for you in terms of what happened with the flood, but express my empathy for your loss, the damage that you suffered as a result of the impact of the flood, the weather that we had last week. I understand from conversation you're one of those that was severely impacted. Your vehicle, I understand, was washed down. Your home, again, was damaged. You have a lot of losses in there, and so I want to really empathize with the situation.
Thank you. The severity of it is sometimes not much. You can't really explain it all the time,
right?
Sometimes it's not worth just talking about it, but it really had an impact on me for a wee bit. I mean, I've lived in River Road all my life, so it's not like it was a first time thing for me noticing the condition. But this time around, it was a whole lot different than I've seen it before.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
I've never seen it gotten to that level before.
And this is why our program is so dynamic, and we try to follow the very current issues, and so we chose the topic to be able to speak about the weather conditions that we had in the past. And I've spoken about that. Let me just say a shout out to those people who've been calling in, supporting the program and commending us on the quality of the program and how much it means to them. We've been speaking about the road traffic issues, and they say because of our insistence on our regular, advocacy for road safety, that they have become more conscious. And I think when we speak about safety and risk in general, the more we speak about it, people become a bit more conscious. And Jasper Price, good morning to you. Thank you again for your contribution towards the quality of the program as well. Just want to say it's my pleasure for all those of you who've been calling in and telling us of some of the issues across that we need to address.
So back from Tuesday evening of last week, and this weekend popping in again, we saw some weather condition. I was looking at some videos of some issues that took place last night. In certain areas, of course, in St. Andrew. I've been talking to a friend of mine in St. Andrew, and they've been talking about the conditions up there last evening also. What is going on?
Yeah. Climate change, climate reality is we just want to cap it in that way. But what we think is what's happening shouldn't be a surprise. If we are in tune with modern day changes and what's really happening around us, we shouldn't be really surprised. So we definitely have the reality of climate change, climate variability. And we do have weather patterns that are sometimes not accurately predicted or forecasted. And so our preparedness levels must be something that is very current, and we can't stick to the old tradition of some ways of informing and warning. And this is why we will focus a little bit on adverse weather conditions, how we look at them, how we treat them. We're going to look at warning processes and early warning to be more specific. We will speak about the impact, how they impact the environment, individuals, the psychological impact that it has on people, and so forth, and how the responses to those situations and what we can do to mitigate some of these things. We look at some actions of the past. We look at some contributing factors that are current, and having spoken about that, we are also going to speak of some things that also have some impact on road safety. Because you understand that when we have those weather conditions, it does have some impact on the safety of others while on the road.
Yes.
So it's quite a lot to speak about, and we want to be able to give callers an opportunity to chime in, because one of the things we do well on this program, I believe, we articulate the issues, but we want to be able to give recommendations and suggestions as to what we should do. And we know that we probably would step on toes, MashCon, and I have no apology for it once it's the truth and it's the fact. We have to face the reality of our days and situation, and we have to live up. And our programs are not to be critical unnecessarily or otherwise, but criticism is good. It gives us a position as to where we are and things that we should not accept and what should be our expectations and things that we should necessarily implement.
The overall idea is to make life better for everybody. Life better for everybody.
Yes,
that's a key
absolutely.
Point. I want us to chime in on our focus a wee bit. Our level of preparedness for disasters of that particular level that occurred Tuesday, last evening. Mm-hmm. Our level of preparedness as a nation. Some folks, as I also mentioned when we say in the start, it may not be a first-time thing for us. We have known of floods taking place.
Right.
But our level of preparedness, especially from the authorities coming all the way down to the regular individuals who live in those the areas where are flood-prone and so forth, our level of preparedness. How serious are we to take, climate change and so forth? That is seem to be one of the main culprits of what we experiencing now.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
How are we to build up on our level of preparedness? As I said, from the top down, from the authorities come down, the disbursements of information, accurate if it could be at times. So let us know, hey, this is going to happen, that is going to happen. I think the world has gone to a level where technology is at a point that it could be predicted accurately. Mm-hmm. You understand? Your take?
Yeah, from policy to grassroots.
Yeah.
And you're right in terms of creating that analogy of where things happen and how we react to it and whether we should be in a better state of readiness and preparedness. And the fact is, the instruments are available in terms of a warning. While every individual is responsible for his or her level of readiness or preparedness, and in direct quote from our national agency, preparedness is key. But preparedness is not just for individuals, it's a statewide, as we mentioned, from policy right down to grassroots.
Yes.
And if we were to look at instruments and the process of warning and early warning systems, we can find that there's still a lot to be desired in how our nation is informed, the level of information, the specific information relative to particular areas. Let's look, for instance, we have our meteorological office, and they do give early warnings for hydrometeorological events. So they speak about weather. They're the focal point for tsunamis and even extreme heat conditions like drought. Our Met Services, they do give us those kind of warnings. And then we have a National Disaster Management Agency that would work in concert, and I've seen a release from them recently that speak to the impact that we're likely to have from yesterday into today, which is good. But as you look at how the entities unfold the areas of responsibility and the level of the information that is disseminated, we can still find out that there are gaps that we can improve on. And so I follow the information very closely when we speak about inclement weather, areas of disturb, and we speak about torrential and insistent rains that are likely to fall and the impact it is likely to have. And Met Office is very specific in terms of seeing areas so prone for flooding and landslides. And I have some difficulty with areas so prone, and I think it's something we mentioned in the past. Where are areas so prone, and who knows what areas so prone really mean? Now, what has to happen when that information is given, they would not have a lot of time to break down the details in terms of saying areas so prone would be this area and that area. the national entity that is responsible for expanding on the information must take that information and be a bit more specific. We do have what it takes. I have no apology for this.
Yeah.
We must be able to get the information regardless of there are mappings, hazard mappings that are available. There are areas that have been traditionally identified and known as land slippage, rockfall, fire-prone, flooding areas, and so forth. So when we do have a threat of any magnitude at all, it is very prudent for us to be able to articulate, remind of those areas. There will be people who may not have heard. We speak on our programs every time and we repeat things because you would not have the same people listening every time. So it is critical to repeat the information or remind people. As we mentioned earlier on, when we speak of road safety, I've heard people come to us every time and say, now that you guys speak about road safety so often, I become a bit more conscious of the speeding issue, of pedestrians and the safety issues on the road. Similar to weather or hazard-related information, that information need to be repeated a bit more. And areas identified.
Not to butting on you, but I would say I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and the same idea of how information is dispersed.
Okay.
Lots of folks are saying, well, folks are maybe listening to radio or they listen to television. How many people would take the time out to always tuning to a television to get information? How many people would take the time out besides want to listening to their own music than to listen to information? So they're saying, let's say 90% of Grenada has cell phones. We have service providers. You understand? Two major service providers. There's three who may not be deemed as major, but also provides telecom information service. How are these mediums able to be used? You understand, to disperse? It may not be the WhatsApp, it may not be that, but there's an option where the SMS. People hardly ever use that medium now for some reason because most folks are quicker to send you a WhatsApp message or than send you. So why are not these medium used, especially by our service providers, to disperse information in a where at least 90% of Grenada or individuals who have cell phones could actually get that information and be alerted that, hey, this is the weather condition there is over here. In terms of it, but other than just waiting on the main television stations and main radio stations to disperse it, because not always they are presented in the proper manner that someone may want to gravitate to. As you said, sometimes the terminology and some of the use folks may not understand.
Yes.
If you understand where I'm coming from in terms of how information can be dispersed more.
Yeah. But I want to expand more, not just on the information. I understand clearly your angle in terms of using all the medium that are available for disseminating information is critical. But I have a wider perspective on it. I've been listening recently to the comments from our executive director of SIDIMA, Liz Riley. And I've also listened to recent remarks by our Prime Minister in terms of relative to national preparedness after we had the impact of burial, etc. And he spoke of aspects of the national agency that need to be revisited and some things that need to be enhanced. And in the words of the executive director, she said that she was very concerned as to the level of transfers within disaster entities and to the qualities and numbers of technical persons that work within those entities. Okay. Those entities, not just in Grenada, it seems as though our region have not yet quite awakened to the reality of climate change and the impact of it. And if they were, the disaster entities would have been better resourced. And I say this to say that I understand the limitations even for a national entity. I've heard Dr. Walters has spoken many times of his limitations and his challenge in terms of the number of staff and the quality and the levels of staff that he may have to his disposal. And not just him, I've heard other regional disaster coordinators spoke of the limitation and challenges where their staff, they have been transferred, and you send people to train in a particular area, and when they return, they happen to be transferred and working someplace else. It happened in the public service, it happened within our police prison services. People are sent abroad and they do these levels of training, and when they return, or even they may have training locally, they are not really utilized in the area that they are trained or the expertise will allow them to for various reasons. Yeah. And we can't afford that to happen. And as I said, the executive director did really, really express her concern that disaster entities, offices, and organizations and agencies, they are grossly understaffed with the technical expertise, the technical people, and we have to build from there. And not just the technical person in terms of the human resource, the instruments that are required. And if we do inventories of some of the things that are currently being used in early warning systems, we realize that some of them are grossly outdated.
Yeah.
Some of the methods that we use, it is outdated.
And
we have to expand.
Not adequate for our times. No.
We have to expand. And we speak of artificial intelligence and all of that AIs that exist. How well are we incorporating that into our systems? We speak of the technology of forecasting and forewarning, and when that happens, or when that it does not happen, it impacts generally on the human and on the economic development or the retarding of those systems. So, in a nutshell, we have to look at our national systems, our structures, and our instruments of early warnings. We do have the ability to capture and identify the issues, but our limitation happen to be in the warnings and the timings of the warnings that we sent out. We must improve. We've just had a release from the agency that spoke of the last 2 days, and people may have been critical of the entity before and said, well, we had all the flooding and so on a couple of weeks before the similar system. Did we have that kind of release coming forward saying to us that this is what we intend to expect? Are we expecting?
Are we behaving in a reactive way more than a...
Well, that is something that we need to examine. And the point I made about reminding people, there are two things about it. One, we understand that things are likely to happen. We have the early warning information. We need to disseminate it, and we need to break it and expand on it further. But a continuous process must be the marking of those areas that are identified as so prone. If an area is flood prone, it should be marked up as flood prone. If it is land slippage prone, it should be written up as that, so that people moving through those areas will constantly be reminded that rockfalls are likely to happen in this area.
Yes.
Land slippage are likely to happen in this area. Flooding is very likely. So when we do have the Met Office coming out to say to us that we expect rain of a particular magnitude and inches, and they have said landslide or land slippage are expected in areas so prone, we need that information to be expanded to say areas like River Road, Montrouge, Woodlands, Grenville, La Fortune, Plains, those kind of areas. People would need to be able to hear them, so it touches you as you enter. And people say, oh, you know what? I even forgot. I'm not going to go this way. Because we use it for planning all of the times. When I need to go and do things, I can figure out, should I use this route? Like last Tuesday or Monday when things were happening, we had to figure out and to maneuver where should we go, because we have local knowledge of that and those areas. Okay. What about the people who don't? What about our visitors and other people who are sometimes at that level of risk?
Mr. McIntyre, we drew for a break. Let's take we come back, and of course we'll chit chat some more. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point here, Classic Radio GBN TV. We'll be right back after the break. Don't touch your dial.
Looking.
Tourism is me, tourism is you, tourism is everybody, and tourism connects us all.
Did you know that tourism generates revenue and foreign exchange earnings?
Did you know it stimulates infrastructural development and facilitates cultural exchange among people?
You must know tourism is linked to all industries,
from agriculture to construction.
So support the industry today and be welcoming to all our visitors.
Tourism is my business. Tourism is your business. Tourism is our business. Listen, one and all. Tourism connects us all.
A message from the Ministry of Tourism
and the Grenada Tourism Authority.
Grenada Duty Free and GBN, we are partnering for this Christmas season. Folks, it's going to be a bumper one. We can actually start feeling the energy, the vibe we start building, the promotions that start coming in, and the fragrances, the chocolate. We have up to 15%, 20%, 40%. It's going to be a crazy one. We are looking forward to seeing you. We are ready to treat you guys special. We are ready to give back to you after this whole year of, being with us and everything and the support. So with our partnership with GBN, it's going to be a bumper season. Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Proud sponsors of Christmas with GBN includes Ace Hardware, Hubbard's, Flow, Duty Free Caribbean, and and supportings. Looking to take your business to new heights? Advertise with GBN on our social media platforms and get noticed by our 138,000 plus followers. Reach a massive engaged audience ready to connect with your brand. No matter your business size, GBN is here to help you grow. Contact us today at admin@gbn.gd or WhatsApp 407-8458 to get started. This holiday season, get ready for a magical celebration packed with culinary delights, crafts, and music that will bring joy to your heart. But that's not all. Lots of giveaways are waiting for you. Stay tuned and make this Christmas one to remember only with GBN.
Welcome back once again, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back, of course, Mr. Sylvan McIntyre this morning here on the program. And, of course, our first segment, of course, we extended that we talk a whole lot about the focus. What people supposed to focus on.
Yeah.
I want us to, of course, talk a little bit now about warning systems.
Yeah.
And, you know, how these warning systems can help in terms of, you know, making it less of an impact on the regular individuals when we have that proper warning systems. You did mention that some of the warning systems that we do have now is a little bit inadequate.
Yeah.
You know, for the times.
Yeah.
What can be done now to improve on this warning system? Because we have gotten to a stage where early warning is important, where people could get the necessary information and so forth so they can make the necessary decisions. We saw individuals losing their lives and so forth because of that. But if individuals are known, well, I shouldn't go to X there or shouldn't go to X area because of that. Yeah. So early warning system is important in terms of helping some way of mitigating this whole situation.
Yeah, thank you, GT. And one of my personal observation is that we don't seem to have a national entity or a body that comes together to analyze historical data.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking about even recent historical data in terms of amount of rainfall, in terms of heat impact and other environmental conditions, to be able to analyze and project where likely course of actions or likely impact could be. I am subject to correction, maybe there is. But the point I'm making is that we depend on external entities and so forth to do our predictions and in some instances forecasting. Well, forecasting then is that science that you need instruments and everything else to be able to do that. But in terms of using modeling, and data will help you to generate modeling. So what it would say to you, even in short term, that if your weather pattern seems to be X over X period of time, you try to deal with the frequency and other kinds of environmental factors to determine the likely impact it can have. We have been doing that for hurricanes. We're doing that for other hazards that do have a pattern. Mm-hmm. And so it can tell you over a period of time what is likely to happen. So I am saying that we should be able to generate a national body that look at the amount and type of rainfall in particular areas, particular times of the year. And I've followed within the last decade, we spoke about it on the program, that as you come not deep into the hurricane season, but as you come to the back end of it, the rainfall has developed and generated a different pattern.
Is it because of a lack of qualified individual? We are not having that problem. So there's not a lack of qualified individuals.
I have absolutely any doubt in terms of the quality of persons that we have available to us. I think it's the utilization of the expertise that we have is our weakness, and there are too many different factors and so on that would keep us apart from being able to bring the minds together to find that mind bank and that intellectual bank that would be able to come up with those outcomes. And so we need those bodies to be able to pull together and say, well, listen, over the years, this is what we have been experiencing. This is the pattern. What could be our mitigation strategy for Grenada? While there is the CIMH that speaks to the region, and we have the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, and so on, that speaks to what's happening globally and otherwise. But we need our local entities to be able to sit and analyze rainfall, heat index, etc., and be able to come up with certain modeling that would give us, in the first couple of years or months, there will be varying levels of margins of errors.
On a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis, there will be so. But if you start working it, you would realize that you're narrowing closer and closer. There are local information, local knowledge that people, you can speak to community persons, and they can tell you some environmental conditions that they would experience, and they can tell you when likely the rain will come and which areas are likely they're going to have particular
and accurately predictions.
And they do have those. Yes, they do have those kind of predictions. So we're saying that it is time for us to think of our national good rather than becoming more dependent on the regional entities. We have to develop our national resource to be able to deal with our nationals, and we need to generate the information that would speak more specific to the areas that are likely to impact.
I mean, want to put you on the spot, but who's responsible for doing that, Mr. McIntyre? I mean, you speak of it, and you're saying that the we factor is you keep kicking in with the we factor, and we should this and we should. But who's really responsible for us having to, or having, these information and then the proper bodies formed and so forth that will disperse information in a timely manner? It should be a regular job for individuals of that who have those qualifications.
Yeah, but we do have our state mechanism. We have the state policy level that they are responsible for driving, and they can appoint or identify any entity to be the lead. And we do have a National Disaster Management Agency that forms the coordination of the expertise and entities to ensure that there are mitigation strategies and there are response strategies generated. Yeah. So it is our state mechanism on the advice and information of the technical people and the expertise to generate. So maybe there is still a gap that exists where we need to be able to find and drive very forcefully and be able to very transparently identify, and that you can eventually put the responsibility and the blame where it lies, or where it should be, when something fails to happen. I've known of countries around us, they embed responsibilities within particular entities, and should they not deliver, they are held responsible. I monitor and follow our recommendation from CDERA at the time, over 20 years ago, where they recommended a structure of disaster management for our countries. Yeah. But over the years, we tend to just keep to that recommendation and have not, in my opinion, as individual countries, figured out whether that one brush plaster all of the 20 states within the CDMA participating states, or whether we should look at what is unique to our own country. So, for instance, we have a structure that speaks to volunteerism across country. But volunteerism is not a sustainable resource. It's not a dependable and reliable resource. And so, while the CDMA structure recommends for volunteers across countries for the national entity, my recommendation is that we should revisit that, and we should have more fixed and positions where people can be held responsible, they can be held reliable, They are trained for the process and they are supported by other volunteers. But across countries, there has to be some fixed, decentralized positions where people have responsibility for disaster management, including the dissemination for information, and failure to do so could be found liable, culpable, or otherwise for doing or failing to do. So we need to move away from some of the traditions that are not working for us and sit and analyze where we are and what will be able to take us better forward. We look at some of the impact which we've had over the years in terms of, one, we have the River Road area, and we've seen some mitigation strategies, physical mitigation implemented by one of the walls. And over the years, I've been part of the system that did some analysis of the St. John River, which is that river that comes way up.
Yeah.
And there were some engineering studies that were done and everything else, and there was a strategy that was recommended so that you can mitigate the impact. The walls were erected, and whether it went into as recommended or otherwise, it has to be looked into.
Yes.
Whether or not it was tested or built for the volume of water, which is unprecedented, or whether or not it is workable for the model that was designed for that time, whether or not we need to go back and revisit it. And there's also other strategies that were recommended higher upstream.
Yes.
There were one time there was one investor that interfered with the natural course of the river. That investor was advised by physical planning that those actions should not be entered into. And I know I had knowledge where that investor was served to decease from dealing with the natural flow of the river. There was some intervention. I don't know what was the outcome with physical planning on that, but it says to us that when things happen, we have to go beyond what may be the immediate and take it to the extent. Because upstream, when you look at the velocity of the river coming through, there is something called basoning that sometimes cuts the flow of the river higher upstream. And there was a recommendation where further up the river course, there should have been creation of basins.
Yeah.
So you excavate and create basins along certain points where you understand the tributaries feed into particular areas, so the volume would be greater. So you create basins that would break the velocity coming downstream towards the mouth of the river. And so now I'm thinking that it is high time that we revisit some of these strategies and be able, even if you have walls or other things, how far should these walls have gone? And should we not try to control the velocity from high upstream rather than just creating a channel that when you channel things, what do? You create stronger force at a particular direction. So when you narrow things down, for instance, if you have a wider mouth of a conduit, it takes in more of the volume. If you narrow it downstream and so forth, you get greater pressure.
Yes.
So if you're going to take,
you have that backflow.
You have the backflow. So if you're going to do from a water tank into your house and you want greater flow, you start with a stronger, a wider line, and you narrow it as it comes closer. So you get greater pressure. It's a similar effect. If you have that open process higher upstream and you narrow it down towards the mouth, you create stronger pressure lower down. So it means, therefore, that it can push itself to expand further and could create further damage downstream. And so I think now that we've had and seen some of these impacts, we need to critically go back and analyze what may have happened and what we can do differently. And I would know for sure that when you plan for the worst case. When the worst case might have happened, you then plan further for what could be another worst case.
I certainly agree with you. It doesn't when you speak of some of the contributing factors that may have led to what we have noticed over the last couple of days.
Yes.
In not only the River Road, but some other areas around the island who may not have even had, been dealt with in a way that River Road has been dealt with.
Yes.
But somehow over the years, there are factors that have been done, in terms of construction factors and so forth, may have contributed to some of the things that we have seen today.
You're touching my veins and my arteries. And as you mentioned, constructions and other contributing factors, I want to just chime in on that a little bit. We've seen a lot of construction and agricultural practices that would have led to some flooding in some areas. And people have mentioned clearing of riverbeds and clearing of streamlines and tributaries and so on before the rain season actually comes in. But we tend to forget that the pattern of rainfall has changed, and we've gone down into having heavier rain, and Met Services may be able to support that in terms of the amount of rainfall that comes in at any one time. Now, this brings me to the point of construction practices on our bridges.
Yes.
As we speak, there's one bridge up in Lassages, between Lassages, Old Japan, up to Coast Guard. That bridge overnight, that area has eroded so tremendous over a short piece of time, and my information is that there was recent engagement in terms of repairs and building of that bridge in that area. So the point is, where is quality assurance in terms of how we study the areas that we need to do certain things, and what is the quality, what is the PSI that is incorporated in the concrete that is intended, what is the strength of the reinforcement bars or the steel that has been placed in those areas to ensure that the volume and the strength of this water is able to withstand it. And the other aspect of it, when we speak about our roads, we see some erosion taking place on the sides of the roads, and then we've also seen potholes are increasing rapidly. Maybe not even potholes, or maybe copper holes, because they become so big and so large so quickly that it leads you to question the quality of the asphalt and the surfacing that are being used. You pass today and there's a little hole in the road,
and you give it to
the next couple of days it's a massive hole that you can plant stuff in it.
But sometimes you have to blame the authorities, and I blame, because there's this issues of folks with these roadsides washing car wash, folks who wash cars and so forth.
Yeah.
And you see what the impact of the constant water been settling on in those areas, especially folks who wash cars by the roadside.
Yes.
And usually that particular area, there's always that damage to the road in those particular areas.
That's correct.
You understand?
So our state mechanism, we want to ask,
and we're going to leave it for deterioration, and
yes,
continue to deteriorate, and not stop these practices. Or have a. If I'm not saying you want to stop somebody's livelihood,
right?
But it's supposed to be developed in a particular way that it doesn't impact our roads in the way that it's been.
We need stronger wardens and vanguards of our society, our roads. Whether we need a public works department or we need some stronger enforcers to be able to look at quality control. What strength of material are we using on our surfaces? What strength of concrete and material are we using to build in some of the places that we build?
All right, Mr. Mac, we drew for a break. Let's take it when we come back in the final next segment. Not the final, but next segment. We still have much more. We're going to introduce some call. We see the phones are going. We're going to, of course, allow our listeners and viewers who want to call in and make a contribution in the next segment. Stay with us, folks. We will be right back. Don't touch it out.
Looking to shop on?
Stacia Blake with GBN News. From all of us here at the Grenada Broadcasting Network, we wish you and your family a joyous holiday season filled with peace, love, and happiness. Thank you for continuing to make GBN our nation's #1 newscast. It's been our honor throughout 2024 to bring you timely updates of local and international news, and we'll continue to earn your trust as we move into 2025. We wish our beautiful island nation God's continued protection as we move forward as one people who are on one journey with one future. Happy holidays from the GBN News team.
Hi, we're here at Asa Coating Grenada Limited, a proud sponsor of Christmas with GBN. And this year, we're giving up to 40% off various items.
And customers actually have the opportunity to win up to $1,000 cash. So we encourage you to stay tuned to Christmas with GBN and look out for all other in-store promotions and product information.
And don't forget, this December, a night of shopping with Answer Coatings.
Proud sponsors of Christmas with GBN includes Ace Hardware, Hubbard's, Flow, Grenada Duty Free, and Answer Coatings.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, once again to The Point for today, Monday, the 18th day of November 2024. Mr. Sylvan McIntyre has me this morning, as usual. We always converse on ways of making, our roads safer.
Yes.
Making life easier in terms of, conditions that we experience, of course, with the experience of Mr. McIntyre and knowing a wee bit in terms of ways that we could mitigate these things and offer information that the authorities could implement and make life a whole lot easier for us. We spoke a whole lot this morning, Mr. McIntyre. We talk about what we need to focus on in terms of making, these adverse weather conditions, not making it, not stopping. We're unable to stop it.
Correct.
You understand? But if we make the necessary adjustments, we could have ourselves prepared much better in terms of dealing with it.
Yeah.
You understand? Yes. We spoke a wee bit about that. You spoke a wee bit about the contributing factors that may have led to this.
Yeah.
And what the authorities may be able to do to kind of minimize it for it. Not kind of, but should able to minimize it if they implement those mitigating factors in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Can make it a whole lot different.
So I call some of them impediments to road safety, and I know there's a lot we can speak about. But my condolences to the unfortunate loss of life of that teacher who lost her life. It's somebody I knew one-on-one, and we were good like that. And her passing is really, really unfortunate. But what do we take from that? It says to us that we need to create bypass for areas that we consider to be of a threat, and that little bridge that had no rail on it, which is believed where she may have slipped off and so forth. We believe that signage should be put up in those areas, and railings should be on identified areas of certain levels of risk. And as we look at the Upper Locust Street area, we continue to advocate from the old government gate right down to the entrance of the Parliament building that goes up to Mount Welldale. That massive box area, they need a box drain and need to be covered. That area there is very deep. As you leave GBN and you're going up towards the roundabout, on the left side, it is very deep. Now, the volume of water that comes down into that area, when it comes, it gets up to the surface of the road. And it is very easy for a vehicle to slip off that edge. I am continuing to advocate that we must get a proper box drain built in that area and cover it with slabs that could be taken off consistently. Maybe metal coverings, or maybe concrete slab that you can take off in grids and clear it as time goes on. But we need to be concerned about the safety of persons in that area. When the rain falls, or even when the rain doesn't fall and you have a volume of traffic, vehicles sometimes stop in particular areas, people veer off there. I've seen a number of accidents, runoffs in that drain. We do not want a fatality in that area. And finally,
redesigning also some of our drains and covers.
That's correct.
Because some of them have been there for 50 odd years or more.
All right.
And in terms of the shallow nature of them, some of them need to be a little bit more deep to accommodate more water. Because we have times of
so some of the box drain, they need to be covered, and some of the slipper drains, they need to be made into box drains so that it can carry greater volume of water. Because the amount of water that comes in some area, it just overrides some of those slipper drains very easy.
We do have a caller. Let's entertain our first caller for the morning. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Telesford. Greetings, Mr. McIntyre. I hear you gentlemen there, and I understand. What we have, Mr. McIntyre, sir, is just the chicken coming home to roost. Over the years, the partisanism introduced by the quote-unquote the two-party state have corrupted the development of this country. Why? Because the constitutional system that we live under promotes and permits it. But that's not the issue now. The issue I want to comment on some of the things that you spoke about. Mr. Telesford, I'm saddened to know, and I think, remind me, is it that where you live there, where your mama shop was on Sunday, that was also flooded?
Yes, it was.
God damn, I don't think I ever knew that happened prior. But there we go. Mr. McIntyre used some very interesting terms. The one you spoke of, basoning. You remember using that term? We cannot hear me.
Yeah, we are hearing you.
We hear you. We hear you. I responded.
You use the term basoning. Precisely that's where the problem is, Mr. McIntyre. That is what we've been having. Why do you have basoning? Whether it be runoff from a hill or from a major stream or river coming down one or two tributaries or more. You have that because there is a restriction or there are restrictions in the outflow. Standard understanding of hydraulics. When we talk about hydraulics, we're talking about fluids and flow. It is time that we correct that issue in River Road. Millions of dollars are being spent building walls along the coast of the river. Understand that all sorts of walls as the Great Wall of China has been recently built. But tell me something, Mr. McIntyre. Has it resolved the problem? No. What it has done is create even more basoning according to the recent reports. More basoning. All right, let's go to your face basin in your bathroom. Picture with me. You see some little holes on the face basin there, Mr. McIntyre?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the purpose of them, sir?
I have an idea.
What is the idea, basically? Anyway, let's go into it.
They will take the overflow.
Overflow. Access for overflow so that that your house doesn't flood. That is what we have to create. Or, let us put it, one of the things that can be done to create the basoning in that area. And note, the river always attempts to jump those walls. Reason being because that was the original course of the river, which was diverted who knows how many years ago, turning it around there into an even flatter place. So when it basins, it floods the Queen's Park completely, it floods the school, floods all up. Now to Mr. Telesford, we need to create venting, overflows. In hydraulic systems on tractors, you have, it's called direct action valve, relief valves. No, in this case, it's not direction relief valve, but you're creating condition, a suggestion. Mr. McIntyre, like you in your position as it is right now, advocate for these things, and people listen to you. That you get a conversation going with the engineers of this country to let us look at that possibility of my idea for discussion and debate, doing some underground pipes along the course of the road as it is right now. Build the road back upon it. I'm talking about reinforced concrete, either with corrugated pipes, metal pipes, or concrete in itself, and rebuild the road at a higher level. And of course, taking in proper drainage. People pay no attention, it seems, to the water that comes down from the hill, because this water comes down from the hills and not directed into the river. They pool, they add to the basoning. So we had to put that into the system to make sure that goes into the piping system along the road, and we rebuild the road upon it. Thrown out an idea, seeking conversation, because what we have to do at this point in time, instead of spending $30-40 million every 4 or 5 years and nothing is happening, let us look for a solution. My thought is that we use the concept, principle, or theory of the face basin to relieve this pressure. If it means after that, and it may mean that lower down when you discharge this major flow from the diversion, you have to open even a bigger pond behind the cemetery, going to the bridge, then let us do that. But we have to relieve the stress on that basoning that you spoke about in that particular area. This is one of the things that I think we can do as a people to relieve that problem once and for all. Subject for any other queries or so. Ready for discussion on the matter. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, will you?
Thank you, sir, and appreciate your contribution this morning.
Yeah, well received. And as we speak of impediments to road safety, I want to advise going forward that as we've had the insistent rains, we've had some flooding and some land slippage. I'd want to warn against further land slippage that are likely to occur.
Yeah.
As we go deeper into November, December, some of those unstable areas may release coming forward. So my recommendation is that people become more vigilant as they move along, even in their own land space, even around your homes and so forth. Please be vigilant and look around for things that may be released in the future. And as we move out of December into January, the dry season, the earth is likely to expand because, again, of the heat. And these movements would create those space. And those space that were created because of the drought which we may have had would have had some impact on the release of some rockfalls in some areas. So the risk do exist. The hazards are there, but vigilance is key. And as I speak on that area on Old Fort coming to the Lucas Street area, there are some stones that are precariously perched on the left hand coming from Old Fort that need to be looked at. The area now is covered with shrubbery and so forth, a bush. So it needs to be cleared up and looked at. In the dry season, it's a bit more exposed. But as we have those solid iron stones, I would call them, that are there, we need to look at them because I think in recent past we had a few that came down, nothing significant. But I know
they become more exposed.
They become more exposed. It's an area of concern. It's not just a hazard for vehicles, but individuals could be impacted by it, and it can have some problems for our roads.
We do have another caller. Caller, you're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning to you, GT and Mr. McIntyre. I heard Mr. McIntyre make mention of interference of the riverbed. I don't know if he's aware that there's a big construction project going on in St. Andrew, just before you go down. Just on where the Charles gas station, they're going into the road that leads to the RC Church and Convent. And people have been noticing and commenting about the amount of riverbed material that is being dumped there for filling and so on. I've heard, traveling on the buses, people are making comments saying that it's come from the Dunfermline River. And some time ago, I've heard a lady, probably from that area, complaining of interference to the riverbed by some previous person, I don't having to do with Caden or whatever, and that has already began to impact the lands, all the boulders that were natural barriers that obstructed the flow of the water and force of it and held it back to an extent has been removed, and people's lands are now being eroded and damaged. But I don't know if Mr. McIntyre is aware, but the volume, the tons of riverbed, if it is from that Dunfermline River or wherever, is really a cause for concern. And I don't know if permission has been given to the person doing it. I mean, it's just a cause of concern with all the flooding, the overflow, as Mr. Rollo just talked about a while ago. I think something need to be looked into. If permission is given to that person, or it really comes from the Dunfermline area, any river for that matter, it is a serious cause for concern. And I would like to maybe challenge Mr. McIntyre, probably if he can look into this from his position as somebody connected to disaster management and so, to do some sort of investigation to find out what is happening there. Because, I mean, it's like mountains of river bed material being blocked up there. People are complaining and asking how they can take it. But I've heard it said, just to repeat myself, that it's from the Dunfermline River. And if that is the case, all of these things are contributors to the natural flow of the river, the boulders and so, being a stopgap, so to speak. And then now that people are complaining, as I said before, I heard people complain on the media that people's lands in those areas are being severely affected now because of the removal of material from the riverbed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Appreciate your contribution.
GT, before we take in anything else, I just want to also intimate in terms of the information that I give, I wish to state categorically clear that when I speak, I represent myself in this instance as a disaster risk management specialist. I do not speak on behalf of CDIMA, neither do I speak on behalf of USAID. I am the co-founder of a company, Caribbean Disaster Risk Management Solutions, and from that end I would speak representing that company, or I speak on my own technical expertise as a disaster risk management specialist. I just wanted to put that out.
Thank you so much. Caller, you're welcome. Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you.
And you'll be our final caller for the morning.
Okay. Mr. McIntyre, represent yourself in this one. Earlier on, you spoke about the organizing or probably the lack of organization when it comes to warning people about flooding and so. What do you think about when it comes to tsunami? I often hear they say, move to a higher ground. No, isn't that cause for confusion? Because everybody will have an idea of higher ground, a different idea maybe, and confusion in the road, no. We know that if you're heading for town, you'll be driving a long way along the sea. You could see Grandans Beach, you heading for town, the carnage, everything, the water is around. Then you may say, all right, let's set up Montu. So based on just what you said earlier on, organizing these warnings, getting to tell people exactly what to do. Because I want to hear your thoughts on move to higher ground in the case of a tsunami warning. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Appreciate your contribution.
Absolutely, ma'am. And I must commend the Disaster Management Agency, NADMA. They've done some work in that regard. They've used Pitimatnik and Carriacou as model state, maybe more Carriacou than. They've created some risk hazard indicators and some routing for tsunamis, and they do have markings that says what area should go to higher grounds. And it is not across country, but there are places where it is the tsunami ready signs are erected. There's an arrow which says where the higher grounds are. But if you can't find those signs that says move to higher ground, it is important to do an analysis of where you live and try to find out where is the highest ground, or get familiar with the areas where you move around. You may be moving around St. George and there may be a tsunami when it comes. Your vehicle may not be able to get you to the highest ground as quickly. Your thing would be to abandon the vehicle and run up to the highest point that you can think about that is around you. That is in essence a tsunami readiness, because tsunami do come with limited or no warning at all. But there are some places across Grenada. There are some in I know for sure some areas of St. George, Molinier side, going up there, there are some signs erected, and I'm absolutely sure there are some in Carriacou. Across Carriacou, they have a number of them, and in some areas of St. Patrick, they do have signs that says where the higher grounds are, the arrows that lead to the higher grounds, that people can move to them.
All right. Mr. McIntyre, I think it's the time of the morning that we got to take a wrap for it for today.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure, as always, conversing, of course, on topics of this nature. It's educational for, of course, for ourselves and to the listeners.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things you speak about, it brings a level of education to yourself also and to our listeners out there. And I want to thank all who contributed towards today's program. We certainly do appreciate it. Continue to the calls coming and sharing your contribution in terms of the information that you pour out. It's sometimes can make a whole lot of difference. So, Mac, anything in closing before we take a wrap this morning?
Well, I just want to reiterate the need for vigilance and to be safe, because we will have some more rain and we will have more landslide and we will have some more flood. And if we didn't have that, the hazards of the thunder and the lightning, they still do exist, and we do have other things to be mindful of. It's general comprehensive disaster readiness. The key word is to be vigilant, listen to your sources of information, and act appropriately and sensibly.
All right. Hey, folks, that's how we take a wrap for this edition of To The Point for today, Monday, the 18th of November. Join us again tomorrow here on Classic Radio GBN TV for another edition of To The Point. That's what we say goodbye.